what is the number one mistake that you see businesses make when it comes to branding?
Everyone is like, branding. I don't have money for branding. What is my brand? You know, one of the things that we talk about before a brand is actually launched is like, how much do you want to own your space? Are you confident in owning your space? Do you feel like your products own your space? And what is your brand?
Right.
Like, what are you going to do? Who are you going to sell to? How are you differentiating yourself between your competition?
So you have a brand whether or not you're paying attention to it. That's what I always want companies to understand, that if you don't take control of it, you're losing out on an opportunity to define who you are, because that's basically what the brand is. It's what people see you as. And the biggest mistake that I see companies making is that they're trying to sell to everyone.
Right.
Have you seen that with your companies?
Yes. Yes. It's you have a problem, I can service you. And that's
big, small.
Yes, big. It's everything.
Every size company, any size budget, we do it all.
Right. Shout out Dan Tyre over at HubSpot, because he's coined the phrase, the riches are in the niches. And, you know, when I first started our agency 10 years ago, I was like, oh, that's so crazy. Like, we can help somebody. Like, if someone comes across my table,
exactly,
that we can do something. And
I don't want to turn anybody away or say no.
I don't want to say no. About year 5, I actually reached back out to Dan and I was like, yeah, you know, that thing that you told me to like really zero in and own something. I was like, I finally get it. Because servicing everybody is really exhausting. It splits your resources. It splits your focus. It splits your personnel attention.
It's not effective.
Yes,
you can't be effective to everybody all the time. And everybody has a different need and a different way of approaching things. And if you're trying to meet everybody's need, you're going to end up meeting nobody's need.
Correct. Yep. I think there does have to be a level of like a bird's eye view, kind of where you can remove yourself from the closeness of the day-to-day, take a step back, and really start to understand, is my brand still what I envisioned it to be, right? Like,
what is my brand?
What is my brand? How am I defining my brand? How is the marketplace receiving me? So legacy companies that have been out there that have a lot of customers kind of telling the story, are those people telling the story that you want?
Exactly.
Or for new companies where you're just in the baby steps of inception of building your company and saying, hey, I've got a great idea, or I've got a great product, or I've got a great service, and I'm going to launch in 2024. Having a very clear, defined brand guidelines, tone, style, visual, like all of those things. This goes beyond just that kind of booklet.
So this is a deeper dive. So the brand, and I think most people think about brand as, how do I look? What is my style guide? And those things are all important. But on a deeper level, it's how you do business with the person that you do business. What is your brand personality?
Right.
What is the company's approach to their processes? And it's everything from when you first talk to a customer to the last email that you send to them.
Right.
When you're considering this, of course, well, the first consideration is, what is it that you do? What is it that you want to do? But the second, and almost the bigger driver, is, who are you doing this for?
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about, how do you figure that out? How do you do that niching that so we can get rich? Talk about the buyer persona. When you talk to a client, what do you talk to them about when you say buyer persona?
That's a great question, because a lot of times where we see gaps, I'll call them gaps, in like go-to-market strategy or product rollout or basic communication of company message to end user, whoever that may be, there is a gap in addressable market and research. And that starts, I think, is your very first step, right? So you have this brainchild of an idea of a product or service that you think would fit well into the wheelhouse of your brand or your company's capability. You've got resources that can build and deploy it. But is it needed? How many people are going to utilize this? Where does this fit into an already probably super crowded market? I mean, unless you're talking a brand new category of services or product that has never been seen before, that's a different story. But if you are an existing product or service and or you have an idea for a new product or service, where does that fit? What's your total addressable market?
And who needs it?
Right. Who needs this? How are you going to reach them? And so even before persona development starts, it's got to be research development on the product or service. And how crowded of a space is this? Because that will also dictate how much you need from a level of effort, whether that be in-house or out-house.
Which is not to say that if it's a crowded market, you shouldn't go after it.
Right.
If
You have
it's a
to
crowded
go
market.
eyes wide open.
Right. It might be because there's such a large demand for whatever it is that you're doing. And so there's a lot of people in that space. But you do need to understand how to differentiate yourself.
Right.
And how to find that person. So once you've kind of identified that market and gone down, now let's talk about who are you selling to? Like literally the person who is your best customer. And not that you're not going to sell to other people.
Right.
But I want to know who is your best customer.
Who is your best customer? Who's your highest profit margin? Who is your shortest sales cycle?
Yes.
All of those things go hand in hand. And when we say focus and, kind of define and not sell to everybody, that's what we're talking about is really dialing in to your your P1, your priority target persona. Again, there will be other ancillary personas and people that will consume your product or your services, but just let those come and go. Don't actually take dedicated resources unless the data defines, hey, this tertiary or secondary persona warrants a little more attention because it's tonnage, it's higher, a higher price per point or something like that.
So you've done this research, you've figured out the person, the gender, the age, the educational level, all of these very specific things that are going to give you an idea of who's interested in your product.
Right.
Now you take that and that drives every other decision that you make about what is your website going to look like? How many emails are you going to send out every month?
Marketing platform tactics that you're going to use. Are you using in digital, at-home, in-person events, sampling? Like, what are you doing?
Because now you know who that person is, and then you think about where that person is finding out information and what kinds of decisions are they making.
Yeah, exactly. Being a business owner and running a business or heading up a team there's a lot of things that you have to do on a daily basis just to make the train continue to move.
Yeah.
And we find that this is one of the things that can snowball really quickly if you don't have a good strategy, vision, mission behind it is, sure, let's just add that on and sell to that. Let's just add that on to sell to that. And then 3 years later, you've got this mishmash of products or services, a mishmash of personas. Each sales rep is doing a different thing. Or if you're still a solopreneur, like your time personally has become divided
completely
between chasing all of these seemingly shining objects that, you got one sale from, or that had one good experience from, but it's not able to be easily replicated. And we're constantly trying to make that replication, but we don't understand, like we're so close to the project that you don't understand that this isn't as worthy of your time as you're giving to it.
Yes. Helps you to set priorities. So we're heading into 2024.
Yes.
Just a few weeks left.
Yes.
We're crashing into 2024.
Yes.
What should people be thinking about as they wrap up and then make plans for next year? First of all, be thinking about wrapping up and then making plans for next year.
Correct.
Now is a good time to that.
Yeah. You should be defining your strategy. You should be in product roadmap development with your product team or, who you're working with, right? Like, what do you want to accomplish in 2024? Is there any new changes that need to happen? But you also should be analyzing what worked really well in 2023 and starting to make some decisions on doubling down on particular efforts that yielded high results, right? So, we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. I think that's also one of the other things that business owners sometimes lose sight about is we're constantly inspired. I'll call it inspired, right? Like we hear a podcast, we go to a keynote event,
now I need to go do that.
See a celebrity who is like crushing it in a particular space, and as a business owner, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm inspired. I can see this as being repeatable in my business in some fashion. Like, let me just figure out how to make this work. And that is like the ultimate kiss of death. Is like
right, because you're not sticking with your strategy.
Not sticking with your original strategy, and you're deviating so very far. I
would say for 2024, now is a good time to, if you already have buyer personas and you've already thought about that, look at it and ask if that is still an effective strategy for you. Are these still the right people, and where are they going in 2024, and how are you going to keep up with that? And then if you don't, now is a really good time to think about that.
Yep. Yeah. And I think also having like, really good partners and it's kind of a couple go-to people, are really important as well to bounce off ideas, right? It can be a lonely job at the top. Yep. And oftentimes the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and you're like, if we're hard, we don't want to fail. So knowing that like you need good sounding boards to like before you make a critical change in your business or change a direction or do something, like you've got to have a good sounding board of people to support you.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds good. Yeah. Good way to wrap up the year, and
it is.
Look forward to the next one.
Yeah, excellent. Well, if you need any help with strategy, obviously we're here to help, and go forth and make all the money in 2024.
Sounds good.